Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is 1:01 p.m. I'd like to officially call this meeting to order. We do have all members of council present. Councillor Nishikawa just has her camera off, but she has been in the meeting. Obviously, our senior staff are all here as well. We do want to acknowledge today that we're on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples, and it's Indigenous peoples who have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations. Their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. Today's meeting is being live streamed, so those people who are joining us in the meeting are consenting to their agenda, or excuse me, not their agenda, they're consenting to their image to be broadcast on our YouTube channel. So thank you for that. If you don't want to do so, then please do not join us publicly. There have been no comments received through our regular channel. We do have a supplementary agenda today, however, and we are adding for item 4A, which is invited delegations. Rick Monkman at 1 a.m. regarding, with Lyle, Quan regarding our fire master plan. We also have, we do have public comment that came in late regarding Mr. Marchetti. He was attending at 2:30 regarding 9B1, zoning bylaw. And then also we have a senior management team report. Director of Public Works regarding McDonald Road reconstruction project and a proposed upgrade, I think bylaw accordingly. At this point, I will go to see if we have any declaration of pecuniary interest. Councillor Bridgeman.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. Just to continue on with excusing myself from anything to do with the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club, I won't be voting on the bylaws. I think it's 9A4.
Okay, 9A4, thank you. Muskoka Lakes bylaw, duly noted. Anybody else? I am personally going to declare a conflict on item number 9A2 and 9B1, which is a zoning bylaw amendment in the name of Marchetti. They are a neighbor of mine, and Vice Chair Edwards has agreed to take the chair for that portion of the meeting. So thank you for that, Councillor Edwards. Okay, we're going to move back to our regular agenda here and see where we're going to go. So we do have a regular consent agenda. One item of note that I will mention to all of council at this time is in our General and Finance Committee meeting minutes, item number 5, that was regarding our budget guidelines from our General and Finance Committee last month. And just to make sure the record is appropriate, understand that we made some slight revisions and tweaks to our budget guideline through our General and Finance Committee meeting. However, the resolution did not state an as amended resolution. So we do have a presentation later on by our Director of Finance, and we will do a subsequent resolution after that meeting. He's implemented the changes, but to adopt the changes in the minutes without the words as amended would be inappropriate. So we're pulling that item through, and we'll deal with that a little bit later on. With that being said, I do have a resolution at this point, moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the March 16th, 2022 consent agenda, and they direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. April 16th. That's right. Thank you very much. It is not March 16th. We are ahead of ourselves. April, or behind ourselves. April 16th consent agenda. Proceed with all necessary administrative actions. And that is number 1, our April 13th General Finance Committee meeting minutes, action items 1 to 4. We are excluding item 5 and then 6 to 7. April 13th, 2022 council minutes. Also, April 14th Planning Committee meeting minutes and action items 1 through 11. Do we have any comments on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. That is carried. Thank you very much. One over there. Try and keep my items here. And Madam Clerk, I think we wanted to move. Did we not? Our master fire plan up? Yeah. Okay, so agenda item 8A, Councillor, we're going to move up a little bit because we do have invited delegation to join us today. Quan is going to be joining us, I believe, and Miss Rick Monkman. So, but I will turn to the fire chief to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council. Before you, Council, is a report that introduces the community risk assessment that has been done by our consultants for the fire master plan. There's a recommendation in that Council endorse this community risk assessment attached to staff report ES 2022-012. For background information for Council, Ontario Regulation 317/18 requires every municipality in Ontario to complete a CRA, a community risk assessment, that is, by July 1st, 2024. The CRA must be reviewed annually thereafter with a review of the 9 mandatory profiles therein. It is intended to identify the unique needs and circumstances, which is a very key phrase within the Fire Protection and Prevention Act of our community, and it will aid Council in service level selection, utilizing the 3 lines of defense, that being education, enforcement, and emergency response. As a part of the process to update the Township of Muskoka Lakes Master Fire Plan, the consultant for the Fire Master Plan has identified, analyzed, and evaluated and prioritized the risks to public safety for us. This risk analysis will be used as a part of the CRA to inform the final Fire Master Plan, which in turn can be used to inform decisions about the provision of fire protection services as we continue to protect citizens in the township. A summary of these risks is provided starting on page 225 in the CRA. Preferred treatment options are to either avoid the risk, mitigate the risk, accept the risk, or transfer the risk. These are noted in the preferred treatment option column on worksheet 10. According to best practice, after a CRA is accepted, the fire chief should adopt, coordinate, and update to make a community risk reduction plan. This is educated by the CRA, and it ensures that this plan reflects the community risks and includes strategy for risk reduction using the resources that we have, as well as a timeline for implementation. Next steps in the Fire Master Plan process include a review and consideration of the draft Fire Master Plan that is informed by the CRA. The draft Fire Master Plan will be based on the information gathered and from the public and from Council, from surveys that have been completed by the consultant. The final document will include things that are not in the CRA before you today. The final document will have things around, will include analysis around governance, administration, service delivery, considering future needs, future fire prevention programs, human resources, which include training, health and wellness and workload, opportunities for innovation, and items around budget. The the Master Fire Plan, together with the Community Risk Reduction Plan, can be used to inform further updates to the fire department's establishing and regulating bylaw, which will most likely have to be brought before the new council due to the new training regulation that will be going into effect. I will now turn the floor over to our consultants, who I see are here. Lyle Quan is here from the company Emergency Management Training, and Rick Monkman, the primary author of the.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you very much, Chief Morrell. That was a very good overview of the process that we're working through. And again, on behalf of myself and Rick Monkman, thank you for the opportunity to be in front of Council today to give you a high-level overview of the Community Risk Assessment. We do have a PowerPoint presentation available, if that could be presented. Wonderful, thank you very much. And if you could go to the next slide, please. As Chief Morrell already pointed out, this is a regulation through the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management that came into effect in July 1st of 2019. And it requires every municipality in Ontario to complete a community risk assessment by July 1st, 2024. So it's really quite a positive move by the community to have this done during the Master Fire Plan. Next slide, please. So overall, we know that a risk is the measure of the probability or possibility of an event occurring that could have adverse effects on the community, including health, property, organization, environment, and or the community. The community risk assessment, based on the information we receive, looks at all of these areas and presents possible mitigation opportunities for taking care of these risks. Next slide, please. And when we talk about the risks and the regulation itself, and Chief Morell had already started to touch on this in his presentation and overview, the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management looks at what we call 3 lines of defense, which are public fire safety education, fire code enforcement through inspections, and of course, emergency response. And this is where the community risk assessment is focused. So when we do identify a risk, how can that risk be taken care of through one of these 3 areas? And that's where we put in the, can it be mitigated? Can you work with partners in the community? What can the department and the community itself do to mitigate these risks or to address them in one way or another? Next slide, please. Again, as Chief Morell had alluded to, the community risk assessment is based on 9 mandatory sections, which range from looking at a geographic profile of the community through critical infrastructure, the hazard profile. So when we talk about hazard, excuse me, hazard profile, it can range anywhere from bodies of water to propane facilities in the community, anything along those lines. We also look at public fire safety response profile. So again, in the 3 lines of defense, the economic profile of the community. And when we say economic profile, how is the community growing? We have seen some communities in Ontario that are actually shrinking. So what is their ability to address some of the risks within their community? And that's where the value of doing a community risk assessment comes into play. And of course, we look at past loss and event history of the profile. So how many fires has the community had and what type of structure? What kind of flooding or other events have occurred within the community? Next slide, please. So along with the community risk assessment, just recently the Office of the Fire Marshal issued a new directive, 2022-001, which requires municipalities to begin a registry that lists the number and locations of structures within the community that have lightweight construction. Lightweight construction is seen in a lot of the new homes, new structures. Now, let me start off by saying there is absolutely nothing wrong with the lightweight construction as far as the building code is concerned. Where the concern comes in is simply when a fire occurs in the structure. That lightweight construction can give way quicker than the older style of construction. And the reason for this new requirement is just simply to identify where this lightweight construction is within the community to ensure that the firefighters and first responders are aware of these hazards that they may be encountering during a fire. Next slide, please. So overall, on a very high level, our risk summary, and as the chief also mentioned, there's that information within the document about the risks that we identified and possible mitigation opportunities. But when we looked at bodies of water, we looked at, of course, bridges. What bridges cross these bodies of water? Are these bridges stable bridges? And what I mean stable is, are they swing bridges or not swing bridges? Do they lift to allow boating traffic to go through or not? Because this can affect the response by the first responders. Marinas in the community. Why do we look at marinas? Well, because of what we call fire load, and fire load being fuel oils, things like that. flooding in the community, how that could affect access points by the fire service. And being aware of all of these things helps the fire service be more efficient and effective in its response. The Township of Muskoka Lakes overall, we look at new residential developments. So what is planned for the next 5, 10, even 15 years? With COVID, what we've also noticed is that communities that have seasonal residents, they become almost permanent in the area. So this has increased the population from what was originally noted for any particular community that has seasonal residents. Is this an issue? No, of course not. These are residences that are allowed to come and go as they please. It's their property. It's just being aware of how the population may have grown. That's something we look at. Technical rescue. So what are the firefighter level of training in these areas? And as the chief also alluded to, there is a new regulation coming out relating to training and certification of firefighters that needs to be looked at. Also with technical rescue, enter into response agreements, so an opportunity to mitigate issues. Next slide, please. Hazardous incidents. Again, are the first responders, the firefighters trained? What are the options here? For example, there is a provincial hazmat team that works out of North Bay. But as I'm sure you're aware, to get that team from North Bay into the community is going to take hours. So what can the fire service do in the interim? Risk following a train derailment. Is there train traffic through the community? What type of train traffic goes through the community? Of course, weather events that we have no control over, but we can be somewhat proactive by using Alert Muskoka notification app. We did notice within our investigation that there's a very low public participation, so maybe more public education in these areas. Looking at tornado, the roof clips that I'm sure most of you have heard about. If a tornadic event occurs, do these homes have these clips to secure the houses, make people aware of these things? So again, public education in these areas. Next slide, please. We also looked at private roadways and laneways. There's quite a few private roadways and laneways that lead to homes that may not be accessible by the fire service because the laneway is not structurally sound to hold the weight of a fire truck or a tanker truck that has thousands of liters of water. There's also the overgrowth of vegetation. So maybe smaller trucks can get down these laneways, but the larger fire trucks may not be able to. So again, being aware of these allows the fire chief and his staff to set plans in place. The camps, the community, Muskoka Lakes has camps within the community. So what level of fire service education is being presented at these camps? Are they training their personnel and their seasonal staff what to do in case of a fire? And how do they train their seasonal staff? So again, quite a few things that we looked at throughout our community risk assessment. Next slide, please. We also looked at building stock, which we talked about. And when we talk about building stock, the resorts themselves, are they being inspected? At what level are they being inspected? Second suites within homes, short-term accommodations, are they built and certified under the Ontario Building Code or the Ontario Fire Code? Residential fire sprinklers, we looked at this initiative because we support this. We do know that there's extra costs, but they are a proven fire safety, how should we say, support to most residents, or all residents. And new requirements on identifying the number of each occupancy type based on the Ontario Building Code classification because of the lightweight construction. And I know I've talked about this a couple of times, but this is, again, just going back to the new requirement by the Office of the Fire Marshal. Next slide, please. So as Chief Morrell had talked about, within the document, we have suggested treatment options. And I use the word suggested because this is where the fire chief and the rest of the community can look at what we have suggested as, can you avoid the risk through education and training? Can you mitigate the risk through response? Can you accept the risk? Because, for example, weather, you just accept that weather will happen. Or transfer the risk through response agreements. And I mentioned the North Bay Hazmat Response Team. That's an example of transferring the risk. However, it doesn't mean that the community absolves themselves completely of the risk. You still need to deal with it to a certain level. And once the fire department has determined the preferred treatment option for each risk, they can plan and implement the activities. And this is where it comes into the community risk reduction plan. So based on the document that we have developed in unison with the fire chief and his staff, and also with the master fire plan, a risk reduction plan can be put into place. Next slide, please. So all in all, where do we go from here? Well, again, we've already talked about the risk reduction plan. And why do we need this? Well, quite simply, as noted here, the community risk assessment will make you aware of areas that need to be addressed. We also know that there's declining budgets within many communities. So you want to have a more focused risk or allocation of dealing with the risks. Community demographics. So how is this changing? Some communities, the demographics are aging. Some are getting younger. Some are getting smaller. Some are growing. So what is the focus of fire prevention and public education in the department? High-risk residentials tend to remain underserved in many communities. And when we talk about those vulnerable occupancies like care facilities, structures also that are more than 2 stories in height. I know that quite often I hear hesitance about buying an aerial truck because of the cost, and there's absolutely no doubt that there's quite a cost to an aerial device. But the ground ladders that are on the fire trucks really can only effectively reach up to 30 feet, and that's going straight up. So if you have a structure that's 3 stories or more, you may not have the ability to effect a proper rescue in these areas. So looking at an aerial device of some sort is a wise choice in any community. And also looking at the hazards within the community that aren't fully addressed at this time. So how can you address them? Again, it's with looking at the options. Do you accept the risk? Do you get a partnership with someone? How do you mitigate those risks? So the community risk reduction plan will better define the fire department's purpose and focus within the community beyond just firefighting. It goes to that 3 lines of defense that we talked about earlier in this presentation. Next slide, please. So this high-level overview that we've presented, I hope has offered a bit more education into why the document is presented, the requirements of this document. But we would be remiss if we didn't point out that during our work on developing this community risk assessment and also the master fire plan, that every member that we talk to within the Muskoka Lakes Fire Department, and I would say even within the community itself, and the department heads and even council, the members that I spoke to there was absolutely no doubt between myself and Rick that everyone is truly committed to improving the level of service within the community, ensuring that it's a safe community and that the fire service will be able to meet the needs of a growing community. And as such, on behalf of Rick and myself and the rest of the emergency management team, we'd like to thank everyone who assisted in developing this community risk assessment. Next slide, please. And on that note, I want to say again, thank you very much. And we'll open the floor to any questions.
Thank you. I'm just going to go actually to our fire chief if you want to provide any quick comments before I open the floor to our council.
Through you, your worship, I would say thank you very much to
Chief Morrell, you're kind of going in and out your audio for some reason. It seems that your microphone may be being covered up or something. We hear a lot of paper shuffling in your office. You're on mute.
there. Sorry
Much
about that.
better.
Through you, your worship, I want to thank consultant Quan, Lyle Quan. Lyle has a lot of experience in this field, so we want to thank him for all his time. It was very valuable as he took me through a lot of the pieces of this community risk assessment. And just again, for council's education, this is the first step as we roll into the fire master plan process. It's to identify the risks. It is a mandatory step in terms of a document that we have to provide to the government by July 1st, 2024. We have some time to put it together and take council's feedback, and I hope that council has some feedback. So now I'll open the floor. Thank you through you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Kelly first.
Thank you. And through you, terrific presentation. Great to see the work that's been done. I have a quick comment. Chief Morrell and his team put on a display, safety display and prevention display of our equipment and our personnel at the arena on Bailey Street. I think it was about a week and a half ago. It was really well done, and most importantly, it was really well received. I've had a lot of favorable feedback from those who attended it, particularly those who had kids. They loved it. My question to this particular issue, I may have missed it. It's a long report. I did read through it. I don't see a lot of reference or any reference to specific education or prevention. That's not my specific mention to forest fire, risk of forest fire, mitigating the risk of forest fire or bushfire. And I'm curious to know if that will be part of what comes next in terms of the more fulsome report.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure, Chief Morrell, if you wanted to handle that, or if Mr. Quan, you wanted to. I see Chief Morrell is on mute or his phone. And the other thing, Mr. Quan, Mr. Monkman, Mr. Quan in particular, we're getting some background noise, I know, from your computer in particular. So when we're not speaking, if you could mute your microphone, that would be great. But I'll turn to either one of you, whoever wanted to answer Councillor Kelly's questions.
I'm going to open this one up because I'm not exactly sure which part of the document that it does come in, but when I searched the other day for this key term, I had a question from a councillor. I saw it, forest pop up about 18 times. So I do know that there is reference in there about forest fire provisions and about the fact that we had just updated our ND-MNRF contract and that was well recommended to continue to participate in that agreement and to expand upon it, which this council had just recently done. Maybe I'll open it up for the author, Mr. Rick Monkman, to expand on what I'm commenting on.
I'm not sure, Mr. Monkman, if you can help us sort of direct us accordingly.
Sure. Your worship and members of council, and thank you, Chief Merrill. We did recognize and look at the agreement that's presently in place with the Ministry of Natural Resources, Mines, and Forestry, and boy, they got a long term they call themselves now. But anyways, we looked at the agreement in place, and with that, we then look at a lot of other joining pieces to go with it, which includes access points. And this is where we made reference to roadways not being accessible into properties, because quite often forest fires start by human error, such as burning rubbish or leaves or whatnot on their property, and then it spreads. So that's where having access points is important. So we did look at it quite a few times through the CRA, and then we did look at the agreement specifically within the fire master plan. So once that is completed and comes out, you will notice that we did make reference to that agreement and forest firefighting risks at that point as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, and through you. It is a rather robust document, so reading through it will probably take some time. Just some things that jumped out right away. Page 181 under roads, parking on the shoulder should probably be considered a hazard. And under railways, the storage of noxious material in residential areas, which is something that we have had in Torrance in the past, should be considered a hazard. I believe 182 generators that are at the fire department but do not cover the community center. Could you add Walker's Point to that? Page 188, table 12, the dates say 2016, 2021, 2016, 2035. I believe that third date is supposed to be 2026. And on page 251 under climate change, increased algae blooms, although they're not really algae, they're bacteria, but still these do pose a hazard for both wildlife and residents. And there's a lot of, my concerns is there's a lot of things that are suggested to go forward in this report, such as weather sirens. I don't know whether you're looking for me to support that today, but I probably could not. There's also establishment of various committees, and I don't know whether I could commit to that without fully going through what committee it is. There was a suggestion of new hire and new fire equipment and a new fire station. So without really hammering down what those are, I don't think that I could, if we're looking for an endorsement for this for today, I'd like to take a little bit more time. This is kind of like eating an elephant. You have to do it one bite at a time. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Chief Morrell, do you want to comment quickly on what we're looking at today, what we're finally agreeing to, or is it directional? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you through you, Your Worship. It's exactly what it is. It's a starting point document for council to be aware of some risks. And I took note of some of those extra risks that the Councillor Hayes mentioned, so that we will make sure that we include them as risks in the document as it moves forward. The document is a document that we can use as a reference piece, but there will be an opportunity, obviously, to interact with myself as we build out what the community risk reduction profile looks like. And at that point, we would bring information back to the NEF committee, General Finance Committee, to gain some acceptance about what the next steps are. And then obviously it would go to council for final approval. So that nothing that you endorse today would enact all of the things that are in the document. In fact, nothing in the document should drive anything without further review. The document itself will just be an information piece that we're obligated to have through the province in order to inform our decision making as it relates to fire protection services. So you'll see in future documents, we will refer back to this document as a place where the starting point of that topic or conversation started. I hope that answers your question, Councillor.
I think it does. I think further, Councillor Hayes, to that point, and Chief Morrell, the resolution, we're actually making some slight amendments to the words as opposed to endorsing community risk. We're actually just going to be accepting at this particular point. And I think that might help Councillor Hayes moving forward. Look at that, thumbs up. And by the way, Councillor Hayes, if I ever had a school project to be reviewed and collect, I need you to go through and do the fact checking on it, because I don't think there's anyone greater on our council that can review a document when she says she hasn't reviewed a document. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. I'm glad that was brought up, because I would have great difficulties endorsing this document. I'm fully accept it moving forward. I did talk to staff yesterday on it, and I understand that this is a boilerplate that's been filled out, that has been dictated by the provincial government, and that we really can't change the format. I think the report falls short, but I'm encouraged that our fire master plan will really take a hard look at our risks, our community, do an in-depth community assessment. I too picked up on the word forest, because I went searching for it, and that's what got to be, forest fires has got to be one of our biggest risks, and it doesn't come out in the report. And another one is our fire services are basically, they're great people, great individuals, but their primary focus can only be containment. So if a place so that's gotta be in there loud and clear. I need to point out that in the table of contents, it misses referencing 91 pages of the report. It starts on page 248 of the agenda item to about pages to about 131 of the report. And basically what it is missed referencing is a very key component and holds the title of this report, which is the community risk assessment. So I think these 91 pages should be by themselves and listed as the community risk assessment. In that same light, and that should just follow in the same flow, the worksheets. The worksheets should be in their own. Then we should have the community risk assessment, and then all the other 4 or 5 items in the report. Basically, I've got so many ideas or comments or suggestions for this report. I think it falls short, but I'm encouraged that our fire master plan will cover off this, and I'll have to wait and see. So, but I will ask staff of one request, just sort of help manage my expectations on what's coming. Could you send to, I guess, council, if I ask it here, examples of fire master plans that would be similar, indicative or whatever to Township Muskoka Lakes? Because when I'm reading through this template, it's more built for the big cities and big urban cities, but they don't have the same geography or residents that we have. So I'd like to see a couple examples so I can get myself prepared for the next piece. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts, I'll go to Chief Morel on this, and I'm not sure what another master fire plan. I mean, it really does community by community respect. I mean, we do have our current master fire plan. I think that certainly can be shared with all of council. Chief Morel, I mean, maybe you want to comment a little bit on Councillor Roberts, some of the ideas. And again, I think we're taking this as one piece, as a building block, if you will, that can change and evolve, but to get us to our ultimate master fire plan. Chief.
Thank you. Through you, and specific to the question that the councillor raised, a couple things that the councillor raised. When I search for forest fires, I only get that hit 18 times. When I search for wildfires, I get another 5 times. So sometimes we call the same thing a different thing. A deer is a deer, but sometimes it's an elk. In terms of fire master plans, I can give you lots of links to lots of fire master plans, and I can provide that easily to council because I read quite a few of them myself on a regular basis. I think the confusion can come in when you look at what a fire master plan is intended to do for that community. A lot of people put an RFQ together, request for quotation or request for proposal, and then they include things they specifically want in their fire master plan. But I'd be more than happy to send that around to council to read at their leisure, or for Councillor Hayes to review it for grammar and spelling mistakes and all the other things, which I do commend you for that, Councillor Hayes, because I've been sitting in front of this document for 3 weeks and I didn't catch half that stuff. So thank you. I recognize it is a boilerplate document as well, and it does recognize it is helpful more for an urban center. That's what the fire master plan will hopefully do. It will take into consideration our unique Muskoka needs and circumstances. The CRA looks at the circumstances as in terms of risks. The needs are the resources that we as a community should be resourcing towards the fire protection. I hope that answers your question.
Councillor Roberts, are you okay? I'm looking a little bewildered.
As usual. Yeah, no, I would definitely like to see some just to get my head around, because what I received today fell short of what I in completeness and quality for our community. And so, yeah, I want to see what a template looks like, as we did with the recreation master plan. I read a couple of them to see what we were getting, so I can be better prepared. So thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. Very lengthy in that report. I was interested when I read about the underwater drone. I'd like to know how much they cost and if we should have one if we've got 97 lakes. And that would be something. I think you should check. It says you have 2 dams. There's 3 right in Bala. And then you've got the Indian River, that's 4. You've got Skelton Lake, that's 5. There's some private ones, Camel Lake, 3 Mile Lake, Clark's Pond, just to name a few. So we should be looking at that. And that it should be for the community. And that's what we should really be going in. I do take exception with the province saying about standards because, you know, maybe some of our fire stations are old, but they're just basically parking fire trucks in there to get to a fire and that. And I did note that our fire truck should have 2 people in them, not 1. Being a volunteer fire department, this cause a problem because you have to sit around and wait for the second guy to get there or you take off. So this is just one of the things. And what I was hoping that we would find is how many firefighters would be at a fire within 14 minutes. I believe it says 6. I would like to see how often we can get there and what it is in the plan. And other than that, I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, comments noted, Chief Morrell.
Yeah, through you, I'll address some of them very briefly. The one comment about the times that it takes for us to assemble and respond, that will be noted in detail in the fire master plan. That is something that we're curious about too, and how we're doing. In terms of the second person and waiting for the second person, I can tell you as a fire chief, we're, you know, in the municipality, we're employers and we're obligated under OSHA to have our people work as safe as possible. And the safest best practice is for them to ride in pairs. The buddy system works at all times. In light of that, in the past, sometimes what the crews would do is they would run 1 person in one vehicle and 2 in the other, and they would be in close proximity in case something went wrong. This is for that purpose, so in order to protect themselves from doing more than required. On the issue of station age does, there is a lot of impact there. And part of that is about the size of the vehicle that you can fit in the station. So an economic, more stock vehicle that you can get may be a little longer than what we have available for space today. And that may cause a customization of that vehicle, which causes the price to increase. So if we can, we will look at things like making the buildings bigger. Some secondary and I would say more important issues are the issues of ensuring that our people are well cared for by having showers in those locations and having good water to both rinse off the equipment for cancer prevention. We know this. We know it's an important facet to a new station, is to make sure that we have good fume extraction, getting all the carcinogens away from our people and their gear. We're sending them into these situations. We're obligated as employers to protect them as best as possible. So those are the pieces where you look at a new station, you try to incorporate that piece. And that's why the station age does matter. Outside of the normal, you know, wear and tear of a building being old, and they're generally harder to maintain when they get older. On the issue of 5 dams, I'm so thrilled that you picked up on that, and we had no idea. So we will be in touch, Councillor Edwards, so keep your ringer on. And I thank you for those questions and those points.
Okay, Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you. And I want to echo your comments on Councillor Hayes, because my one comment as I've been looking at this was around climate change. It doesn't jump out, and in anticipation of different types of events that could be happening. So when you mentioned, Councillor Hayes, that there's a section on climate change, I continue to go through this document, and it's just a possibility of perhaps pulling that out in a more meaningful way and understanding. As I was listening, I heard from the fire chief and a consultant that most wildfires happen through the actions of human beings, in anticipation that that may change with the advent of climate change and other items that may be happening within our jurisdiction. I just feel like that should be perhaps organized and treated on its own, and a little bit more forward facing instead of just looking at historical data. So beyond that, I think a lot of the questions that have been asked, I think are fantastic and have certainly opened my eyes. And I would concur with Councillor Edwards on the dams. I think actually, if you look at the actual Muskoka River Management Water Plan, it's pretty much isolated there, unless there's a lot of others that I'm not aware of as well. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jagowitz.
Thank you, Chair. Chief Morrell, I was particularly struck by your answer to one question where you indicated the reasons why our fire stations should be more modern, not only to accommodate the new vehicles, but also to protect the people that work there. But I was also struck by looking at the map, which was part of this report that showed our 10 stations and our 7 teams. And I did a little, a napkin review of it and drew some circles. And I found that I could probably group those into 4 stations. And I just wondered if this report's going to look at the appropriateness of having much better facilities, but fewer of them. And when you talk about showers and all that equipment, and these regulations will continue to get more strict, and also 2 people. So what's the point of having trucks everywhere if you haven't got 2 people to get into them? So I was just hoping the report would address that and see if we couldn't have a really first-class fire situation here, but it just may require less stations. Thank you.
Chief Morrell, I think the one thing is just how many stations and where do we end up? I think that's going to continue to come out of that. When do we expect to make some of those input decisions?
We're eager to get that to council through you, your worship, to council. We're eager to get that to you. Those answers are specifically being asked and hopefully answered in the fire master plan. Station locations will be something that will be before council to review in that fire master plan, and it will be considering those very points that Councillor Jaglowitz makes. They're very reasonable questions, and they'll be in that report. In terms of how we're putting together our data, we've actually reviewed how we gather that data, and data is how we will drive the decision-making process. So some parts of the fire master plan will say, you need to get more data before, we suggest that you get more data before you make decisions. I don't anticipate on the station location piece that we will have all the data that will be required, but we're hopeful that we'll have some options for council to review in terms of number of stations and priorities for the future. For Councillor Mazan, she had mentioned climate change. Climate change is an emerging issue, and obviously as things get hotter earlier, or as we run the water off faster, you'll even note right now that the Muskoka area fire chiefs have initiated a fire ban, and this is the earliest we've ever done that. So you will see notes on that and press releases this afternoon on that. That is happening because climate change is warming up the fuels that will burn earlier, and then the human piece comes in when we have people camping and doing things in the bush, driving an ATV, whatever it might be, or the hydro lines go down because of human interaction on a highway. That will cause a wildfire faster because the fuels are all preheated. So yes, climate change plays a big role, and it plays a big role in multiple areas. So I appreciate that question. I think that maybe we'll take that back and we'll make sure that we hone in on that very subject. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other questions. Mr. Quan, Mr. Monkman, excuse me. Thank you for your work today. This is sort of step 1, and we are not endorsing everything within this plan, but we're just starting to collect additional pieces of information to create additional data, if you will, for our master fire plan. And Chief Morrell, thank you for your leadership in this. And I will say, you alluded to hydro line. For those who don't know, there was a hydro line incident yesterday on Highway 169, and the road was closed for a number of hours, but hats off to the fire crew who dealt with the hydro line incident. And I've watched them firsthand deal with the hydro line incident, and extremely well trained in doing so as we wait for fire crews to turn off power. So thank your crews for that. But I do have a resolution at this point, and it's moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that council accept the community risk assessment attached to staff report number ES 2022-12 as amended. And the amendments are as comments that we've heard here today. We will be amending the document accordingly. Any other comments on the resolution? All those in favor? Clerk, I believe we are carried. Thank you. Appreciate that. Again, Chief Morrell, thank you, Mr. Quan and Mr. Monkman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on and come back to our beginning of our agenda, if you will. And we have a report regarding original shore road allowance swap, and that's regarding Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club. Where am I going? Shell, who's got that one? Okay, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report and related bylaws are to declare surplus land to stop up, close, and convey a portion of road allowance leading to water, and to also acquire land in exchange for an alternative original road allowance leading to water. This application was previously approved by committee on June 16th.
Okay, thank you. And I think I forgot to mute my microphone. So I hope that was okay and you didn't get too much feedback from the other side of the room. Any questions from council on this? I have a resolution moved by Councillor Jaglowitz, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that a portion of original shore road allowance lying in lots 25 and 26, concession 6, Port Carling, Rule 5481, designated as Part 1 on Plan 35R 16-621, be declared as surplus land. And that in exchange for the said original road allowance, the township will acquire parts 1 and 2 on Plan 35R 26608 as an alternate original road allowance leading to water, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of said property pursuant to Section 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001. And further, that bylaw 2022-70 to stop up, close, and convey a portion of original road allowance designated as Part 1, 35R 16-621 be given 3 readings and passed. And further, that bylaw 2022-69 to acquire lands designated as Part 1 and 2 on Plan 35R 26608 as an alternate original road allowance leading to water be given 3 readings and passed. All that and the question, all those in favor? Madam Clerk? Carried. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Okay, we have Westbury International Corporation. I believe, but
It's just a bylaw.
It's just a bylaw. Okay, we're going to skip over that one. And let's go to Director of Public Works, I think, all-terrain vehicles.
That's also a bylaw.
It's just a bylaw, but I think we should also just have a quick overview on that one. Director Becking, what have we experienced through ATVs?
Thank you, Your Worship. The bylaw that is being proposed is simply a housekeeping matter. The original bylaw was passed in 2016 by council, and it contained a 1-year trial period. The bylaw has been in place since, and was never the stipulation of the 1-year trial period has not been removed. The bylaw before you will make the use of all-terrain vehicles and alternate recreational vehicle use on township roads permissible on a go-forward basis.
Okay, any questions on that? We're going to get to the bylaw shortly. Apologize just on the addendum. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you, through you to Mr. Becking. I know this isn't on this particular bylaw, but it has been raised in 2 communities that I'm aware of, that people are looking for an alternative piece of equipment. I'm going to just say a golf cart to get around their community. So I would, I mean, I can go and talk with you, but I do wonder if this municipality should be looking at other alternatives. And so, for instance, you know, the golf cart could never go out onto 169 or 118, that type of, you know, discussion. But I would like our municipality to look at the options of, again, I'll just say golf carts, to be able to, so some of our senior people can actually go and visit their neighbors. safely. And again, I just would like for council to think about that option. Don't think it can be in this bylaw today, but.
Okay, thank you for that. Director Becky, I'm not sure if you want to comment at this time or whether we not want to have a little more fulsome discussion regarding this at a GNF meeting in the future.
Certainly, we can do so, Your Worship, but I believe the issue of golf carts is covered off in the definition of permissible vehicles. And so I believe that they are already permitted.
Councillor Nishikawa, you have a supplemental?
I'm sorry, I mean, I've read the same thing. I've read the bylaw a lot, but I will say that in fact, the OPP have made, I'm going back a few years now, pretty much the year after we put the ATV bylaw in place, that it was pointed out that but golf carts, because they're not licensed, wouldn't be treated the same as the ATV. So that in fact they weren't, and that was another director of public works that confirmed that golf carts were not legally allowed to be on our municipal roads. So if this is saying that it is, yay, but that wasn't made clear to me, certainly dealing with a different director. Thank you.
Director Beck, I'm not sure if you want to deal with that or whatever. I believe Councillor Nishikawa might be correct that it's licensed vehicles would be allowed on the roads, and some golf carts may be able to be licensed, but some would not be licensed. But I'm not sure again if we want to deal with this here or maybe have a little, I'll see Chair Zavitz as well, if we want to maybe have a little more fulsome discussion, because I'm certain there are people in their local communities who might like to drive from property to property via golf cart. Director?
Certainly we can do so, Your Worship. But my understanding is that provided they meet the requirements of the Act in terms of physical characteristics and licensing, they are allowed on the road. And so I would suggest that council go ahead and pass the bylaw. And if we choose to amend it later on, then we can proceed to do so.
Okay. Councillor Roberts?
Thank you. This particular item is in front of you because of a letter request I received from a Milford Bay constituent. And I had asked for the bylaw, and there we discovered, Robert Kennedy and myself, that this had not been updated. In conversations with Mr. Kennedy, he said, no, you cannot, the staff should go back to Mr. Kennedy, is that it falls under the Highways Act and stuff like that. And in his opinion, it is not allowed or permitted. So there's many reasons. We just have to get Mr. Kennedy. So for the public, don't go out and start driving your golf carts right now. Just hold off until Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Beckina had time to review this.
Okay. I see Councillor Zavitz again, I don't want to belabor the point and try and have it here at council chamber. I think we do want to refer the item and the idea of golf carts back to GNF. Do I get a nodding of heads that people are okay with that? I think we are done with that. Mr. Becking, hopefully in our next GNF agenda, we can put a topic of conversation, and maybe we can do between yourself and Mr. Kennedy a little more investigation on the ability to drive golf carts. So I'll leave it at that. Councillor Bridgeman, you have another comment?
Just very quickly, thanks, Mayor Harding. When you're doing all that research, I believe maybe as a public service for people who own golf carts, really look into the insurance on that, because if they're not licensed and they're on the highway, I don't believe they're covered. So it would be another element of this. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And I think certainly we have a number of, I'll call them motorized vehicles these days. We have electric scooters, gas scooters that people are moving their way around on. Where do e-bikes fall into this? So I think it might be worthy of its own, certainly agenda item at General Finance to understand that a little bit more. So thank you. But, we're talking about it. Let's go forward with the bylaw right now. And it is moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-71 being a bylaw to permit the use of all-terrain vehicle, multi-purpose off-highway vehicle, utility vehicle, recreational off-highway vehicle, on municipal roads within the Township of Muskoka Lakes be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. This is basically to correct the temporary bylaw that we had put in place. Any further comments? All those in favor? Madam Clerk, I believe we are carried. Thank you very much. And Director Becking, we look forward to continued discussion. I'm going to move on to Hardy Lake Park and an update. We've had some movement from the ministry.
That is correct, Your Worship. Just to keep council apprised of developments in response to our letter that was sent to the ministry at your direction. We received reach out from the ministry to discuss the matter further. Subsequent to the receipt of that request, a meeting was held. I can say that generally speaking, the tone and tenor of the meeting was positive, and the ministry acknowledged that there is room for further discussion. So at this point, I think I would like to leave it at that. I would, however, suggest that in a show of good faith, that staff be allowed to continue to provide minimal maintenance services to the park, pending further discussions and negotiations with the province.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Edwards. Sorry, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Roberts, but I'm thinking Councillor Edwards.
Oh, I'm much older
Same
than
glasses
Councillor
and
Edwards.
forehead.
Okay, just on that, it's really encouraged that the province is now opened up to considering other options for Hardy Lake, which is a much needed asset to the community and to tourism. My concern remains with the insurance and the liability risk placed on the township if anything happens, not so much in the park, but on Highway 169, where it is a very dangerous strip of highway when it's crowded on both sides, even though it's illegal on one side with parking. So I would like to know how if our insurers have been informed that we are acting as a contractor and maintaining a private piece of property owned by the government, and whether our liability insurance would cover that.
I'm not sure who would want to handle that or not. It's almost maybe a question of our clerk potentially, but Director of Finance potentially, I'm being advised. And I guess, Councillor Roberts, we know it's a district road, so any accident that would happen on the road, first line of defense would be that of the district, I believe. I think if we were to mismanage our maintenance of the park, we might be liable there by agreeing to that. But I don't even believe Director Becking right now, because their contract theoretically has expired, are we operating, or how are we theoretically operating from a liability perspective, whether you would like to deal with that or Director Donaldson. And I think certainly as we move forward, our insurance company will be well aware of what we're doing. That's why we chose to put a stake in the ground, I believe.
I think I can speak to the question, Your Worship. I did, through the Director of Finance, reach out to our insurers, and our insurers were not aware that in fact we were providing these services in the park. They are now aware that we have been. If we intend to proceed to do so or continue to do so, then there would be some obvious implications for our insurance, and they'll take due accounting of it.
Councillor Roberts.
Yes, supplemental. Okay, so I'm not a lawyer, but I understand lawyers in this business say this is how they make money, because people make assumptions on their coverage, and you don't want to hear from a lawyer you're not covered, not from an insurance lawyer you're not covered. So I think we still need to tie a little bow around this and get some sort of protection. And I really want to move forward supporting Hardy Lake, but we've got huge exposure here, in my uneducated opinion. So I encourage that we do that prior to doing any maintenance. Not much different than what we do with our contractors or people that we're being asked to be part of their policy, to be named on their insurance policy. Maybe we have to do that with the Ontario government. So that's what I want to encourage council to do, and staff.
So, Councillor Roberts, I think first of all, that's the reason we put a stake in the ground with the ministry, because the agreement that they wanted us to sign had increased liability associated. Director Becking, maybe you can comment, and it's tough from a legal perspective. Would we have any increased liability by doing some maintenance on the park at this particular time? I don't know whether you can answer that or not. I would suggest there might be liability because of those people we'd be putting in the park to do the maintenance. But maybe we need to have this discussion with our insurer a little bit more before.
I would suggest that we should do precisely that, Your Worship, and get our insurers' input on the matter. Certainly, the public is using public property and they have a right to a standard of care. That principle is enshrined in tort law. If someone is hurt and there is a question as to a lack of care, then the potential for liability is created. I may not be seeing it as well as a lawyer might, but that's the essence of what I understand the situation to be. So I would suggest that before we proceed too much further, we want to get this insurance matter wrestled to the ground.
Correct. And I think it's listening to our clerk, there's a bit of a double-edged sword. To your comments as well, Director Becking, we're liable for the work we do in the park.
Yes.
Going forward with that agreement, but we equally might be liable for work we don't do in the park. I think the good news of all this is that we're asking staff to continue to negotiate with the ministry and to continue to get to an acceptable agreement that will include all the insurance provisions appropriately. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Perhaps the comment or question would be directed to Director Becking. I am not aware that it just sounded like we've got all kinds of work planned for Hardy Lake Park. And I understand that we do clean out the garbage and clean out the porta potty. We're not creating 6 lanes of traffic through a park or anything like that. So I thought from some of council that may not know that we really are talking about a porta potty in the winter snow plowing, but I'm just talking about the work that's going to be happening throughout this summer. And unless there's a whole bunch more work that I'm not aware of that's going on, I don't know that we need to be so overly concerned that we're sending staff in and everything is a danger. We've been doing this for how many years now? More than 20 that I'm aware of. But anyhow, I think it should go through the process, but we don't have a lot of work going on, period. That's it.
Okay, Director Becking, maybe you can comment. There's 2 parts to this resolution. I think there's no question that we would like staff to continue negotiating with the ministry. And that's certainly a good thing. The secondary portion of this is that staff authorized to provide basic maintenance. What is the basic maintenance, if we may, to Councillor Nishikawa's comment, that we are performing right now? And are you okay with putting a pause on basic maintenance right now? Let's leave that silent in the resolution potentially and continue to hammer home the need for an appropriate agreement that would include basic maintenance. Director?
Thank you, Your Worship. Under the previous agreement, which has now lapsed, we were, for all practical purposes, the operator of the park. We inspected the trails. We did items of maintenance on the trails. We did the grading of the parking lot, the plowing of the snow. We provided the porta potty. We cleaned up the garbage, and that was the essence of the work that we did. The ministry themselves took no active role in the park. I can't speak to whether or not they. I beg your pardon. I can't speak to what they may or may not have done, but to my knowledge, they were there. It was managed by them from their nearest provincial park, I believe 9 Mile Lake or such. That's what we've been doing traditionally. We've also done work on some of the structures inside the park. What council could do is, as you suggest, proceed with the first part of the resolution and hold in abeyance any further maintenance works pending successful outcome on the agreement.
Thank you. I'm getting that sense, and I think Councillor Roberts, thank you for bringing that up, that the concept would be we would continue to negotiate. We are at the same position we were, where we theoretically, our contract has expired, which means we are not required to do any maintenance anymore, anything to the park. We are going to continue to negotiate with the ministry, but there would be increased liability, to your point, should we continue to do maintenance on the park. And I think that also is our last little bit of leverage to negotiate a new agreement. So I would certainly be in support of removing that section from this agreement. Councillor Nishikawa said there's not a lot of maintenance going on, and we will continue to negotiate and use that as our leverage, that there's no maintenance being done in the park. So do you want maintenance done in your park or not? And that would hopefully move us forward. Councillor Roberts, are you okay with that as an agreement going forward?
Yes, for the piece that says we're going to continue negotiations with them, but in no way should any one of our staff set foot in Hardy Lake.
So I understand we're not going to include that in this part of the resolution. Councillor Hayes?
Then I won't be able to support this, and I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Councillor Hayes?
Thank you, and through you. The Hardy Lake Park is perceived to be a township park, even so it is a provincial park. If we stop collecting garbage and we stop cleaning out the porta potty, where does that garbage go? I mean, I think we may be creating a really big mess here that will look bad on us. Hundreds of people visit that park, and I think we have to maintain some basic maintenance in there, just so that it's not strewn all over the township.
So I appreciate that. I see Councillor Everts and Bridgeman both want to provide comment. I'm going to suggest, actually, Council, if we may, that we take a quick 15-minute or 10-minute break at this particular time. I think Director Becking has heard the comments loud and clear about doing work unauthorized. Maybe there's a bare maintenance that we can accept some liability of risk from a garbage perspective, and let him come back with his wording to this, so that we can have support. Councillor Everts, do you want to make a comment before we send Director Becking away to kind of have some thoughts as to what we might pass as a resolution?
Yeah, I'll be very, very quick. I support that Councillor Hayes on this. I think we should be doing just basic maintenance. You just can't let the garbage pile up there. It's more of a hazard than anything else, and it shows good faith in actual negotiation. It's the same with unions or anything else like that. When you're negotiating, you try and negotiate in good faith So I would support basic needs, and that's only. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bridgeman.
Very quickly, Mayor Harding, we may be able to get a limited rider on our insurance policy just for the garbage and for the porta potties. Director Becking, just as we do our negotiations, and I think that would satisfy everybody here, I think.
Okay, duly noted. Director Becking, you want to provide a quick comment and then we'll have a break and see what we can come up with.
I was going to propose a small alteration to the resolution, Your Worship, but we can wait and discuss it after the break, if you wish.
Okay, thank you. We've been at it for an hour and 15, so probably a good time. Council, let's take 10 minutes and we'll come back at 2:26. Let's make it 2:27 because we're halfway through the minute. Thanks. Okay, it looks like we have quorum. So I appreciate that. And others will come back. We're back online. So we had some discussion with Director Becking during the break. And we do have some liability if we don't do anything. So we need to sort of do something along the way. And we've updated the maintenance activities and sort of put a caveat as to exactly what it is and quantified it. And the basic maintenance would be temporary washrooms and garbage collection only would be the two items of basic maintenance that we would be doing at the park at this particular time. And then that continues us to move forward with the province in dialogue. So I do have a resolution in front of us, moved by Councillor Everett, seconded by Councillor Zavitz, both in the room. Be it resolved that staff continue to negotiate with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, MECP, staff respecting an operation and maintenance agreement at Hardy Lake Provincial Park, which is acceptable to the township, and that staff be authorized to continue to provide basic maintenance activities, and in brackets, temporary washrooms, garbage collection at Hardy Lake Provincial Park for the balance of the 2022 operating season until council has made a decision on an updated agreement. Councillor Roberts. I know he's a little bit frozen as well, I think, and muted. There we go.
Okay, there we go. No, okay, so before we vote on this, I would like to have a follow-up question to staff.
Certainly. What's your
Okay,
question?
so Director Becking, you said you had been in correspondence with the insurer. Can I assume that they're getting back to us with details? And can I also assume that part of the request is that they would accept all risk and claims that result from anything to do with Hardy Lake?
So Director Becking, if you want to comment, I'm not sure we're going to get that waiver, but that's a bit accessible. Anyway, Director.
We will be making the insurers aware of our activities in the park and any limitations that council would impose upon it as an addition to our policy.
Okay, that doesn't go far enough. So I'm going to ask for a recorded vote on this. Thank you.
Okay, we can certainly do that. And any other comments? Seeing none, I will turn to the clerk for a recorded vote on this particular. Thank you.
Sure. Councillor Bridgeman.
Barb, you're on mute.
That's not helpful. I am here. I'm sorry, I missed part of the motion. We're voting to, sorry, Mayor Harding. I've been a little distracted.
I'm going to read it one more time with everybody here. And that is, the first half is not changed, and that's we continue to negotiate with the ministry. The second half, and that staff are authorized to continue to provide basic maintenance activities, and that is now defined as temporary washrooms and garbage collection at Hardy Lake Park.
Thank you. Yay, yes. Yes.
Mr. Bridgman is in favor of that. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Yes.
Councillor Hayes.
Yes.
Councillor Jaglowitz.
Yes.
Councillor Kelly.
Yes.
Councillor Mazan.
Yes.
Councillor Nishikawa.
Yes.
Councillor Roberts.
Nay.
Councillor Zavitz.
Yay.
Councillor Harding, or sorry, Mayor Harding.
See if we can get unmuted here. And I am certainly in favor of this. So yes, on my behalf, which means that resolution is carried. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm going to try and go through the next couple. We have a Fowler Construction to a contract award. Any questions on the contract award to Fowler at this particular point? I'll read the resolution moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that council award contract T 2022-02 to Fowler Construction for the bid price of $136,240 plus HST, and the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. Any further comments? All those in favor? That one is carried. Thank you. This over here, one brief moment. Works. Bala Falls Bridge. Any questions on Bala Falls Bridge at this particular point? Not seeing any. Moved by Councillor Jagowitz, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that contract T 2022-35 for the rehabilitation of Bala Falls Bridge be awarded to Urban Link Civil Limited for the bid price of $2,423,423 plus HST. That the existing design contract for T 2022-35 with Tatham Engineering Limited be extended to provide administration, construction inspection, and material testing services at the estimated price of $111,125 plus HST, and that the 22 capital budget be amended to increase Bala Falls project bridge project 22056 by $1 million, and that the 2023 capital forecast be amended to decrease project by 22056 by $1 million. And finally, the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with that contract. Any comments on that? We're basically getting the bridge done sooner, if I may. All those in favor? That is carried. Dr. Becking, you've got a bridge to build. Get on with that. That and that. Just at 2:30. I'm going to turn the chair over at this particular point to Councillor Edwards. I think we have a couple of items for Marquetti, and we also have some delegates because we're supposed to be here at 2:30. I believe Mr. Allen is going to be joining us in the meeting, and also a couple of others. So, Councillor Edwards, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Harding. Excuse me. Okay, so we're looking at the application for Marchetti, and I'll have Ms. Walker I'll go through that before we have Mr. Allen.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Edwards. In December, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 37/21 bylaw 2021-117 in the name of Marchetti. The subject property is known municipally as 1026 Island Park Road. Bylaw 2021-117 will have the effect of permitting the reconstruction of a dwelling and an as-built garage on an undersized lot. It will limit the maximum dwelling height to 29.5 feet. It will repeal bylaw 2002-124 and will permit the relocation of an existing dock. In December, Planning Committee recommended that the applicants work with the westerly neighbors, Sean Donaldson and Jason Sift, to try to address their concerns between committee and January's council meeting. At the January council meeting, council heard the two parties had agreed to a slightly rotated building footprint. However, an agreement was not reached regarding the relocation of an existing dock. The application was deferred, so further discussions between the applicants and the neighbors could take place. It's now the understanding of staff that an agreement has now been reached regarding the relocation of the existing dock, and this has been updated on the plan attached to the council agenda today. 4 minor amendments are required to recognize the shift in the building footprint and the relocated dock. The required minor amendments are as follows. A minor amendment will be required to address the side yard setback of the proposed sun deck. Due to the rotation of the dwelling, the proposed sun deck will be 13.8 feet from the easterly side lot line, whereas the minimum required setback is 15 feet. A minor amendment is also required to prohibit the proposed dwelling and a new as-built portion of a garage to be located within 226.7 meters above sea level, which is the static floodline elevation. The bylaw will be worded such that the proposed dwelling footprint is as shown on the revised site plan / zoning schedule to ensure the configuration agreed upon between the applicants and Mr. Donaldson and Mr. Sift is constructed. A minor amendment is required to locate the existing dock on a lot with less than 100 feet of frontage. And a minor amendment is required to permit the relocated dock to have a side yard setback of 3.4 feet where 15 feet is required. Submissions were received from the Township's Public Works Department, the Township's Building Department, the District of Muskoka, the Trillium Lakelands District School Board, Paul Donaldson, Dorothy Watts, and all of these have been included in the agenda package today. I have no further comments, but I'd be happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Mr. Allen, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair Edwards. My name is Ryan Allen. I'm with Planscape, 104 Kimberley Avenue, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1Z8. Thank you, Ms. Walker, for your very detailed and thorough description of the application and the history. I spent some time preparing the similar comments, so I'm not going to repeat what Ms. Walker had explained, but I think this is a good news situation. The Marquettis were able to reach out to Mr. Donaldson and Mr. Sift and came to an agreement related to the relocation and reconstruction of the existing dock. I should also point out that discussions also occurred with the neighboring property, the owner, the Watts, that are on the opposite side, to ensure there were no concerns with the relocated dock impacting their property. So I'm happy to say that all parties appear to have reached agreement, and we would like to move the application forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? I take it there's none because I can't see it on my screen. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
I believe Mr. Marchetti is wishing to delegate. So if Mr.
Okay, that's why I asked. Yeah, that would be fine. Have him come on. Thank you.
Hi, Council. No, I just reiterated what Mr. Allen said. We did come to an agreement with the Donaldsons through various meetings with them, as well as the Watts, and we just wish to proceed this forward with Council's approval on this plan. So if there was any questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, I devote my time back.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have to ask, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
Mr. Donaldson is here wishing to speak.
Okay, yeah.
Delegate on this matter.
Okay, Mr. Donaldson.
Hey, everybody. Do you need my name and all of that jazz, or just?
Yes, we do. All that jazz.
Okay. Absolutely. So my name is Sean Donaldson. I live at 1070 Hamels Point Road, Mactier, Ontario, P0B1J0. And first of all, I would just like to thank you as council for your part in this matter and giving the Marquettis the direction in the last meeting to converse with us and come to an understanding. And I'm happy to say that we have come to an agreement where, you know, all parties are in agreement. We are happy, and we hope that the Marchetti family is as well as the Watts, because we understand there was some conversation between the Marquettis and the Watt family. So we are in full support of the Marquettis. We believe that this family should be able to use their property as they see fit. They conform to every type of bylaw and whatever else, aside from how it's interpreted, as we've been talking about so much lately. But we do appreciate all of your time, the Marchetti family especially, and you as councillors. So thank you all for your work in this.
Thank you very much. Are there any other people wishing to speak in support or opposition to this application at this time?
There were no other delegations or public comments received regarding this matter.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions from council? Seeing none, I'm going to go through this whole application. Okay, moved by Councillor Hayes, second by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021 117, that's 117, to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Marchetti, Roll 5-6-49, be read a first and second time. All those in favor? And that's carried. And the second motion is moved by Councillor Jagowitz, second by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 21-117 Marchetti, and these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation, are hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendments shall consist of: 1, prohibiting the proposed dwelling and as-built portion of the dock with it, within 226 static floodline elevation. So that's for flooding. Permit a sun deck associated with the proposed dwelling to be set back 13.8 feet at the closest point from the southeasterly interior lot line. And 3, relocating existing dock with a reduced setback of 3.4 feet. 4, to permit a dock to be relocated on a lot that is less than 100 feet of lot frontage, and updating Schedule 2 of Bylaw 21-117 with the revised site plan. All those in favor? That's carried. And the next one is moved by Councillor Kelly, second by Councillor Bridgeman. Be it resolved that bylaw 21-117 Marchetti be read a third time and finally passed. All those in favor? That is carried. Now we have a fourth one here, but because there's other ones in that, I'll turn it back to the mayor, and if I have to read it, I can read it later. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Edwards, for that. And yes, I can read the other site plan without a problem. So I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move back to item 8H. No, HG. 8G, and that is got a number of marine facilities where we're going to rehab and replace. Any comments on that 8G at this time? Councillor Edwards, and then I may get to Councillor Director Becking. Councillor Edwards first, and then to Councillor Kelly.
Yes. Without looking at it, I had a phone call from the Skelton Lake, 3 Mile Lake Association regarding the Shea Road and that boat launch. Maybe Mr. Becky could answer that. Is that going to be in this budget this year? I think there was something was moved on that, I believe.
Director Becking, maybe give us an overview of rehab.
Thank you, Your Worship. In response to the councillor's question, no, Shea Road is not included in the this year's budget. That having been said, we are aware of the concerns of the community, and I would suggest that we will be including it in our submission for the 2023 budget. In the meantime, we'll take such maintenance as is necessary to make sure that it continues to be usable.
Okay, so it will be safe, because I think there was something in the way. So, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, just a quick question about Appian Way. I understand the reference to using a gravel base for the commercial ramp, but the report itself, I think, is silent as to any work that may or may not be necessary on the recreational side. I'm just trying to understand if there's any other work that will be done on the non-commercial piece of the ramp.
Director Becking?
I'm not aware of any needs for the recreational ramp at this time, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jagowitz.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff. I just have a question on the Beaumaris dock. Since we're 60,000 over budget on these projects, and 35,000 of it is in that one project, in average, it's more than double the budget. Just wonder if you could explain what occurred there.
Director Becking.
Certainly, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor, for raising the matter. The project consists of two components, one of which is replacing the decking in the area, and ancillary to that is some leveling of the cribs underneath that portion of the wharf. There is some uncertainties associated with that work, and frankly, the contractor has bid the work to cover his exposure to risk to achieve the project outcomes. So for that reason, they bid accordingly. That's common practice.
Supplementary.
Yes.
So were there multiple bids, and all bidders were that far out of the ballpark, or was there only one bidder?
Director Becking.
Your Worship, I don't have that information in front of me at this time. My recollection, however, is that the bids were few and far between on all of these. We have difficulty attracting bids, particularly as it relates to our marine facilities.
Okay, Councillor Jagowitz.
Just so I won't hold it up for that, but could you possibly just supply that information at a later date then? Thank you.
I can make that commitment, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I have a resolution moved by Councillor Kelly, second by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved, the staff be directed to proceed with the 7 marine facilities replacement rehabilitation projects noted in Table 1 of Staff Report PW 2022-28. And that 2022 capital budget be amended to decrease the Birch Avenue ramp project PW 22062 by $80,000 from $80,000 to nil, and the project PW 22062 be canceled, and the staff be authorized to reallocate the savings from the Appian Way and Birch Avenue ramp projects to Baycliff Ramp, Rosso Lake Road number 2 dock, and Torrance Wharf projects as necessary, and the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute such documents as necessary to proceed with the works. Any further comments? Councillor Zavitz has his hand in the air.
Thank you. Just through you, sir. Other projects, it says page 3 of 3, 3 other projects, the ramp, Rosso Lake Road, and Torrance Wharf will be tendered at a later date. So I'm sorry, I must have missed something. Is that saying that Torrance isn't happening this year?
Director Becking.
No, Your Worship, quite to the contrary. Those 3 projects are currently being designed and will be tendered a little bit later for completion within the current budget year.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Exactly. As I understood it. Thanks.
Any further comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, move to item H, excuse me. And last month, I believe at Planning Committee, we had a request from the owner of Ripplewood Apartments, Mr. Phil Sift, and that was to allow the existing securities to remain for the in place, and for that to cover off the next 2 projects as well. Any comments on this? We have a draft bylaw or resolution in front of us. Councillor Jagowitz.
Yes, sorry to speak again, but I do have a comment. I will be voting for this, but I just wondered if we really given this enough thought. When this came forward to us at committee, our staff recommended against it, that it was setting a principle that might be followed. So I have a concern. So maybe maybe I'll ask a question that might help me. Are these securities going to be held till the very end, and there won't be any release of them incrementally until all of the projects are fully complete, or the 3 properties are fully complete? Is that the intent now?
I'll go to Director Pink, I think, who was commented on this, and I'm not sure that staff recommended against this, but I'll let Director Pink comment accordingly. And I see a gray bar. Maybe we're just going to listen to Mr. Pink. There he is. Director Pink.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, in response to Councillor Jagowitz, I believe that would be the intention. We would hold the security, essentially 1/3 of the security for the whole development, and it would not be returned until all of the works have been completed, all 3 or 4 phases.
Thank you.
Okay. I do have a resolution moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that securities held in relation to SPA 9621 2540158 Ontario Limited, which is known as Ripplewood Apartments, Rule 534, in the amount of $105,630 be sufficient to cover the securities necessary for the remaining phases of the apartment development. Any further comments? All those in favor? Madam Clerk, that is carried. Thank you. Mr. Pink, thank you for that. Director Donaldson, mentioned this in our item 5 of our GNF meeting ahead of time. Our budget guiding principles policy.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. As you noted in the minutes, so there were some comments made when this item came to General Finance Committee. There's a version that shows the markup of those amendments, a couple of grammatical errors, one related to the delegation values to staff, and one just relating to scope of project changes being included as requiring council's approval for amendment during the year. So with those changes, I present the updated policy for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any comments this time? I have a resolution moved by Councillor Bridgeman, seconded by Councillor Everts. Be it resolved that the updated policy CFS01 budget guiding principles policy is on the bottom. There's my mistake, sorry. Policy FIN 2022-013 budget guiding principles policy dated May 11th, 2022, attached to staff report FIN 2022-013 budget guiding principles policy update be approved. Is that wording correct? I've got a little bit, I'm confused now. Director Johnson.
Thank you, Your Worship. The policy referenced in the first sentence is correct, related to staff report FIN 2022-013.
Okay, I'm going to read that again so we have the right policy. Be it resolved that updated policy CFS01 budget guiding principles policy dated May 11th, 2022, attached to staff report FIN 2022-013 budget guiding principles policy update be approved. We got the policies correct now? We did. Any further comments from council? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Economic development, first intake. Not sure, Mr. Moore, if you're going to speak to this or who wants to deal with this. Corey, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council. Today's report is the first intake of our community grant program. The successful applicants, as recommended by the Grants and Economic Development Advisory Committee, can be found in Appendix 1. As all the funds have not been applied for, we will be proposing to go out for a second intake this summer. And the one note I did just want to confirm with council, one application is still under review, and we are just seeking some further details from that applicant. And we'll discuss that with the Grants and Economic Development Advisory at the next regular scheduled meeting. And in turn, we'll bring that update back to council at the appropriate time as well. With that, I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Of a resolution moved by Councillor Jaglowitz, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that the Grants and Economic Development Advisory Committee's recommendations respecting funding allocations for the first intake of the 2022 Community Grants Program as outlined in Appendix 1 of Staff Report CED 2022-18 be approved. Any further comments? Councillor Edwards.
Yes, I noticed that the Port Carling's and that skating club had asked for 5,000. They got 2,500. And that, what do we normally give them? Is that normal, or do we normally give them the full ask?
Mr. Moore.
The policy states a maximum amount of 2,500.
Okay.
I think when we did the COVID-19 relief fund, the maximum amount was 5,000. And I believe they were just going off of memory when they submitted the application. And that's why I believe they submitted for that amount.
Okay,
but we are back to the regular program now.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to some bylaws. Looks like here, or do we want to do the zoning bylaws first of all, and then corresponding bylaws? Do we need to? We have a site plan control, but do we not usually do our zoning bylaws first of all, and then do the following bylaws? Okay. Okay. So item 9A1 is moved by Councillor Zavitz, second by Councillor Bridgeman. We resolve the following bylaws. You read a first, second, third time and finally passed. And that is a bylaw 2022-67 being a bylaw to deem lot 13 on plan 16 not to be a lot of a plan of subdivision, which is Skeleton Lake Marine Limited, Roll 2, 2035, and bylaw 2022-73 being a bylaw to deem lots 3, 4, and 5 on plan M176 not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision, and that is Doherty, Rolls 2, 12, 12, and 2, 12, 13. Any comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Site plan control. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bridgeman. Be it resolved the following bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and that's bylaw 2022-06 being a bylaw to designate site plan control for Marquetti, part of lot 35, concession 4, Port Carling, roll 5649. Bylaw 2022-75 being a bylaw to designate site plan control Lateo, concession 7, part lot 22, Wood, roll 6446, and bylaw 2022-76 to designate site plan control Skeleton Lake Marine Limited, lot 28, concession B, lot 13, plan 16 Watt, part of lot 29, concession B, parts 1 and 2, plan 35R 14298 Watt, rolls 22035 and 22036. Site plan control. All those in favor? Site plan control is imposed. Stop up close. Moved by Councillor Jaglowitz, second by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-70 being a bylaw to stop up close and convey a portion of original shore road allowance as part 1 on 35R 16621 be read a first, second, third time and finally passed. And the bylaw 2022-69 being a bylaw to acquire lands designated as part 1 and 2 on plan 35R 26608 as an alternate original road allowance leading to water be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mazan, second by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-42 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix a corporate seal to a license agreement between the Corporation of Township Muskoka Lakes and Westbury International 1991 Corporation be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Bridgeman, second by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-85 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2022-43 being a bylaw to regulate the parking of vehicles in the Township Muskoka Lakes and bylaw 2022-86 being a bylaw to authorize the temporary closing of Lock Street, Port Carling in the corporation of the Township Muskoka Lakes be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, just give me one moment here. Road closing. Mateo, official plan amendment. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-46 being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment 54, which is Lateo. Rule 6(4)46 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Director Becking, there should be a corresponding report, I believe, regarding, is this on our supplemental agenda?
Yes.
Thank you. Regarding McDonald Road. And there should be a corresponding bylaw. Director Becking, McDonald Road.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council will recall you authorized the reconstruction of McDonald Road in Foots Bay as part of the 2022 capital program. Since that time, we received a request from an adjoining property owner asking that the road be further upgraded so as to make it permissible to carry full loads on a year-round basis. The proponent has offered to pay the marginal cost of the further upgrades, which will consist of an additional 100 millimeters of granular A material being placed on the road. Staff are satisfied that with that addition, full loadings will be permissible. And we've prepared an agreement which has been executed by the proponent, agreeing to pay for the additional work, and it requires a bylaw to proceed with the works. To that end, that would be staff's recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you to Director Becking. What would be, like, I'm thinking now about the year-round maintenance, and yeah, I guess looking forward to future budget costs. Because the other thing is, I'm wondering if this might actually address some others that have been looking to get their road year-round. So I'm just wondering if there's some additional costs in the future to the township.
Director Becking.
Your Worship, in terms of annual maintenance, it would not affect the maintenance that would have to be provided. The deficiency is strictly to address the structural capability of the road.
Okay, Councillor Nishikawa, you satisfied with that? No added. Councillor Jagowitz. Frank, you are on mute.
I'm sorry about that, Council. Yeah, I'm on, yes, through you to staff. I'm on the same vein. Is my understanding this is a year-round road? We're just talking about that you're going to remove the half-load restriction in the spring. I looked at 1.6 of the agreement, the clause, and I was frankly confused because I was on the same thing. So what happens if next spring, next spring, when the road's used by these heavy trucks in the spring and it demolishes the road? I see a clause there that you have some recourse, but I don't fully understand it. So that's the first part of my question. And then the second part is that you based, it's my understanding from your report, you based your recommendation on some test pits that were at the site, but there was no indication of who did the test pits or whatever. So maybe you could just explain, I think my concern is like Councillor Nishikawa is, will there be a long-term, will there be a, you know, a future cost to the municipality that we haven't understood here?
Director Becking.
I'll start with the last question first. The test pits were carried out by staff under my direction, my supervision. The purpose of the test pits were to satisfy myself that in fact the subsurface conditions were as purported by the proponent, and they were, and that they were acceptable. And on the basis of that, and based on engineering principles, I came up with a pavement structure that I felt would be adequate to withstand the loadings at all times of the year. In terms of the maintenance of the roadway, it won't change the maintenance that we perform on the roadway. If anything, in the short term, it will reduce the amount of maintenance that we have to perform. Quite frankly, from a staff perspective, provided that the proponent is prepared to pay the marginal cost, I would see this as a win-win situation for all parties.
I thank you for that thorough explanation.
Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you very much. I think this is a win for the township. The Colsons have been here for years. They're very reputable. They're paying for the upgrade of the road so they can do their business. And I think they should be applauded for this, and I will definitely be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Mazan.
Councillor Edwards just said that very eloquently. I think this is a win-win, and it's really wonderful to see people stepping up and being part of the solution. So I'll be supporting this as well.
Okay, I'm going to go right to the resolution then. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bridgeman. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-89, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an affixed corporate seal to an agreement between the Corporation of Township Muskoka Lakes and Colson Brothers Scow Services to receive a contribution donation for the reconstruction of McDonald Road, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any further comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for that. And just to agree with Councillor Edwards and Councillor Mazan, this is a win. We get a better road out of this that lasts longer, services many people, and not at our cost. So that's the best part of this whole thing. So awesome. We've got a few zoning bylaws regarding night. Where's our first? Oh, we really have much of an application here, do we? Does anybody want this first one? Night, any comments? I'm just gonna, where are we? Mr. Soya, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon. In April, Planning Committee heard a zoning bylaw amendment in the name of Knight, which was considered concurrently with a severance application to create one new lot in the community of Torrance. The purpose and effect of the bylaw amendment is to rezone the retained lot from community residential to community commercial in order to permit highway commercial uses. It is also a purpose of the bylaw to permit the severed lot to be undersized. Planning Committee has recommended approval subject to two minor amendments. Number one is that the maximum effluent flows on the retained lot be restricted to 4,500 liters per day. This amendment is recommended in recognition that a hydrogeological study is typically required where effluent flows are greater than this amount. And however, in this case, they're not expected to be, and such an assessment has not been prepared. And the second recommended minor amendment involves prohibiting the uses of automobile washing establishment and contractor's yard on the retained lot. And this recommended amendment is in recognition of the location of the property at a prominent intersection in Torrance, and that this community is not serviced by municipal water and sewer. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to do first and second. Moved by Councillor Mazan, second by Councillor Bridgeman. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-197 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 night, Rule 6502 and 6503 and 6505 be read a first and second time. Any further comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Minor amendments as requested. I'll read that. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, second by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved, Township Council amend bylaw 2021-197 night. These amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and hereby approved prior to third reading. These amendments shall consist of limiting the maximum effluent flows on the retained lot to 4,500 liters per day and prohibiting the main use of automobile washing establishment and contractor's yard in the community commercial highway C4 zone on the retained lot. Any questions or comments on the minor amendment? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Third and final, moved by Councillor Roberts, second by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved, bylaw 2021-197 night be read a third time and finally passed. Before third reading, any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Appreciate that. McNeil. Next one. Where are we going? Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. In April, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 14/22, bylaw 2022-156 in the name of McNeil and Alexander. The subject property is known municipally as 1100 Torrance Road. It was submitted concurrently with consent application B/134/136, 135/136/13721 ML. Bylaw 2022-56 will have the effect of imposing a 100-foot setback from the edge of a wetland. It will also define the front lot line of the retained lot to permit the retained lot to have a 66-foot frontage. No minor amendments are required. Submissions were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, Eric Campbell, the Township's Interim Fire Protection Officer, Sandy Boss, Township Septic Inspector, the District Municipality of Muskoka, and Bell Canada. All the submissions have been included in today's agenda package. I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist committee with any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to do first and second. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Jaglowitz. Be it resolved, bylaw 2022-56 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, McNeil and Alexander, Rule 6.595, be read a first and second time. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. No minor amendments, as we heard. Third reading, moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-56, McNeil and Alexander be read a third time and finally passed. Any final comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. McNeil's done. Ontario Inc. 267-2072. Ms. Darling, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. In April, Planning Committee heard zoning amendment application ZBA 6521, bylaw 2021-201. The name of 267-2072 Ontario Inc., which is known municipally at 1053 Breckenridge Row, unit number 2. The zoning bylaw amendment application was submitted to construct a 2-story boathouse and associated dock on a lot with 294.5 feet of frontage. Planning Committee recommended to Council that the application be approved. No objections were raised by the Township's Development Services Division, the Public Works Department, or the Emergency Services Department. The Community and Planning Services Department of the District Municipality of Muskoka were not opposed to the application being approved. No submissions have been received since Planning Committee last month. No minor amendments are necessary, and staff have no further comments. And I'd be happy to assist Council with any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Council, any questions right now? I'm going to do first and second. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-201 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14. 267-2072 Ontario Inc. Rule 2809 be read a first and second time. All those in favor? That one is carried. Thank you. No minor amendments. Third reading, moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved bylaw 2021-201. 267-2072 Ontario Inc. be read a third time and finally passed. Final comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Skeleton Lake Marina. Who's up? Mr. Soya.
Thank you, Your Worship. In April, Planning Committee heard a zoning bylaw amendment in the name of Skeleton Lake Marina Limited. The subject property involves 2 abutting lots owned by Skeleton Lake Marina, one with frontage on Skeleton Lake. The purpose and effect of the application is to rezone the northerly lot from the rural residential zone to the waterfront commercial marina zone, and to restrict the permitted uses on this northerly lot to only permit a parking area in a defined location. Bylaw also involves permitting a dock addition on the southerly lot. Planning Committee has recommended approval of the bylaw subject to 1 minor amendment to rezone a portion of the northerly lot, which is identified as a heritage area, to environmental protection EP1. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
I'm going to do first and second, moved by Councillor Bridgeman, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-207 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Skeleton Lake Marina Limited, Roll 2-2035 and 2-2036 be read a first and second time. All those in favor, first and second. That one is carried. Minor amendments moved by Councillor Edwards, second by Councillor Jaglowitz. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2021-207 Skeleton Lake Marina. These amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation, are hereby approved prior to third reading. These amendments shall consist of rezoning the heritage area of the subject lands to environmental protection, or EP1. Councillor Jaglowitz, I have a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you. When this came up at committee, I asked the question whether or not these 2 lots would merge, and I believe the answer was yes. Did this resolution actually affect that these become one property?
Mr. Soya.
This resolution does not consider that. However, I believe there is a deeming bylaw on today's agenda, deeming the northerly lot not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision, and therefore the intention is for those 2 lots to merge.
Councillor Jaglowitz, supplemental.
Yes. So I'll be supporting this based on the idea. So explain that again. So they're not merging, but the lot is deemed not to be. I'm just confused. The reason I raised it was because this is a marina, and it all should be considered together, and not that piece not to be able to sever it off. So maybe.
So if I may, Councillor Jaglowitz, I actually believe that to Mr. Soya's perspective, we actually did already approve that lot not to be a lot of subdivision, which means we have deemed it as one lot. I see Mr. Sharp has turned on his camera at this point, which I think answers your question. But Mr. Sharp, did you want to comment?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Exactly. Council's approved a bylaw to deem the lot containing the parking facilities as not being a lot on a plan of subdivision, which will have the effect of merging that lot with the larger land holding to the south. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You've all heard the minor amendment. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Third and final reading, moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved by law 2021-207, Skeleton Lake Marina Limited be read a third time and finally passed. Any further comments? All those in favor? That one is carried. Shalite, who's up? Starling.
Thank you, Your Worship. In April, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 10/22, bylaw 2022-051 in the name of Schleit. The subject property is known municipally as 1325 Beatrice Town Line. The zoning bylaw amendment application was submitted to construct an accessory residential secondary dwelling unit, and Planning Committee recommended to Council that the application be approved. No objections were raised by the Township's Development Services Division, Township Public Works Department, the Emergency Service Department, nor the Community and Planning Services Department of the District Municipality of Muskoka. There were 7 letters of support that were submitted from area neighbors prior to Planning Committee, and no new comments have been received since Planning Committee last month. No minor amendments are necessary. Staff have no further comments, and I'd be happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, first and second, moved by Councillor Mazan, second by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved, bylaw 2022-51 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Schleight. Rule 9, 12, 14 be read a first and second time. All those in favor, first and second? That one is carried. Thank you. No minor amendments. On to third reading, moved by Councillor Evers, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-51 Schleight be read a third and final time. Third time and finally passed, excuse me. Any final comments in the third and final time passing reading? Not seeing any. All those in favor? That one is carried. Thank you. On to Lateo. Mr. Sharp, you got this one.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. As council is aware, concurrent official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications have been submitted in the name of Lateo. The subject property is known municipally as 1143 Torrance Road, and it fronts onto Black Lake. A dwelling, garage, and a dock have been enlarged in the absence of building permits, and the applicants are seeking necessary planning approvals to recognize as-built lot coverage amounts and accessory building height. Planning Committee recommended that the applications be adopted and approved subject to a number of proposed modifications by the applicants. The applicants propose an overall reduction in lot coverage to 11.7% over the area of the entire lot and 13.7% within 200 feet from the high water mark through the removal of roofed areas. The applicants also propose to eliminate an exemption and reduce overall built form through a reduction in dock width, the removal of an upper level sun deck associated with the as-built garage, and the removal of a sun deck in the front yard area. The draft bylaw before council today reflects these modifications. Council can approve the bylaw today or give first and second readings and withhold third reading until the applicants remove the roofed areas, remove the sun decks, and bring the as-built dock width into compliance as proposed. The applicants also have retained Riverstone Environmental Solutions Incorporated to prepare a revegetation plan, and this plan is intended to be implemented through site plan control, and council has approved that site plan control bylaw here today. I would also note that council has also approved the bylaw to adopt the official plan amendment. I have no further comments at this time, and I would be happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go right ahead to first and second reading, moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be resolved that bylaw 2021-03 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Lateo, roll 6-4-46. Be ready first and second time. All those in favor? Okay, we're just, if you guys can hold your hands up, there are some people just, I believe, you okay with that, Karen?
Can you call opposed?
And opposed, just to make sure we are consistent. There we go. That is carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We do have some minor amendments in this particular case. Moved by Councillor Jagowitz, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2020-103 Lateo, and these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation. Hereby approved prior to third reading. These amendments shall consist of reduction in lot coverage resulting in lot coverage amounts of 2,862 square feet or 11.7% over the area of the entire lot, and 2,862 square feet, 13.7 feet over the area of the lot within 200 feet from the high water mark. Replacing Schedule 2 to bylaw 2022-103 with a revised site plan, and removing exemptions from front yard setback and cumulative dock width requirements, as those exemptions are no longer required. Any comments on the minor amendments? All those in favor? It's opposed? Anyone opposed? Just consistency, and that is carried. Thank you. And then council staff have recommended we withhold third reading on this until such a time as the items have been removed. I believe need a nodding of heads on that, Madam Clerk. People are okay to withhold this? Councillor Nishikawa would like to speak to it.
Thank you. I guess when I read the report and I read the site plan, it says, it looked like things had been removed. And so I guess I wanted to be updated on what has already been removed. I thought things had already been removed and that they could be moving forward.
Mr. Sharp, I'm not sure if you want to comment on that, where we're at this point. Your recommendation, though, is withholding third reading. So, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. To my knowledge, it's my understanding that none of the proposed modifications has been undertaken to date. So I think part of the reason staff would suggest that withholding third reading would be the way to go is that administratively, it's just a lot cleaner. It's going to ensure that the applicants do what they've proposed to do, not that they wouldn't, but it just, like I said, it provides administratively, it's a bit more straightforward for us. Alternatively, if you were to read the bylaw, you know, there's a schedule attached to the bylaw. If you were to give it third reading today, it would be implied that the applicants would undertake those proposed modifications in line with the approval. So it's really a debate among council at this point on how you would prefer to proceed with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think staff recommendation at this point, as we've been doing our new general practice, is to withhold third reading until we see the removal of those. Do I get a nodding of heads to defer the third reading at this particular point? Thumbs up, thumbs up. Madam Clerk, I think we are in agreement to defer third reading. Thank you for that. We have some future meeting schedules that have been recorded within our agenda. And I'm going to move by Councillor Bridgeman, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Oh, Councillor Jagowicz, you have a question?
No, I apologize, Chair. I hit the wrong button.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Bridgeman, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that council in closed session convene at 3:29 p.m. for litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, affecting municipality or local boards, and that is two matters pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. All those in favor?